Hi everyone,
G'day.
and welcome to our conversation tonight. We're going to be talking about a walk worth dedicating our lives to.
Yes, so grab yourself a cuppa and settle in.
Yes.
I want to share just a bit of an experience of a walk that I've done this year actually with a friend. I've done a few different walks in the course of my life. One of was our honeymoon,
That's
yes. But this walk we were doing, was about 25 kilometres, and it was just along the coast near where we live. And it was actually a walk in support of some people who were going through a bit of a hard time. And my friend, he is an avid walker. He would walk probably 40, 50 kilometres a week. Now, I move a little bit in the course of my work, but probably nowhere near that. And in the lead up, I thought, we'll be able to do this, we'll be able to do this. And so we walked off, and initially we did well. Actually, we set a bit of a cracking pace, kind of at the head of the group, and we're keen to get to the end. And so it was all going well. But then I think probably about 10K from the end, my calves were just aching. Like I was hurting so much, I changed my gait.
Oh, wow.
I changed the way I was walking just so that it wasn't quite so much. And kind of shuffled into the end. We made it, but it was tough, It seemed like a good idea at the time. This is something we want to do. But then it got difficult, and there were moments where you just had to keep literally putting one foot in front of the other. It was a hard walk. And as you're watching this, perhaps you've done lots harder things in your life. It's not really the point. But a walk that you have chosen to do. Like, have you ever chosen to do a big walk?
The biggest is probably the walk that we did on our honeymoon.
Yes.
Which was 90 Ks or whatever.
Yeah.
So I chose that.
Yes, you
I
did.
chose to do it with you. So that's probably
You did have some warning, I must add. We didn't. I do, and here, come for a walk. No, but how did you prepare for that?
Well, we did. I mean, I have walked a lot in my life as well.
Yeah, you have.
But it was a different kind of thing, carrying packs and doing all of that. So we prepared by carrying packs around our neighbourhood and going for walks and having weights in our packs and doing all that sort of thing, those kind of exercises and
you walked
stuff.
in your new boots, got ready.
Yes, that's right. Walked in the new boots, wore the pack, all of that stuff. Yeah.
And so as you're tuning in, you're probably wondering what this has to do with life and following Jesus. What does that mean? And we want to look at the example of someone's life here. So I'm going to read from the scriptures, actually the book of Genesis here, and I'm going to read from chapter 5. And we're going to pick it up right down in about verse 21. And it just says this: when Enoch, so this is our key character here, Enoch, was 65 years old, he became the father of Methuselah. After the birth of Methuselah, Enoch lived in close fellowship with God for another 300 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Enoch lived 365 years, walking in close fellowship with God. Then one day he disappeared because God took him. Now, even in such a short thought, there's a few things that are beyond me. I hear 365 years and my mind boggles. But what I want to first focus on here is this character's name, Enoch. It's not really a name that we hear too much.
I've heard a few people with that name.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. But maybe it's a few families who like this character from the Bible.
Have you heard of people recently?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, I haven't heard of too many people, and if you're watching this, perhaps you can say, Team Brett, never heard of it, or Team Renata, yes, heard of it a lot. But this name literally means dedicated.
Yeah.
Now, off the top of your head, what's the word dedicated mean to you?
Committed to something.
Let's dig a little deeper. Committed. What does committed mean?
Something that you are prioritizing, having a purpose about, something that you really like and want to do. I guess if you are dedicated to it, or if you are dedicated to something, I'm going to give my life to this thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good working definition. And we can use examples of athletes. Athletes are dedicated some of them adjust the way that they eat so they can perform better. Some of them adjust their sleep so they can perform better. I follow rugby, and some of my teams will play during the day or they'll play at night. And in the lead up to the night games, they actually start training at night so that they're used to the conditions. So they're that dedicated, they shift their lives around. And so this character's name is dedication. Dedication. And I think then that asks us, in the world that we're living in, we can move through the world in lots of different ways. We can drift through the world. We can go through in spurts and stutters. I think we find ourselves dedicated to something. There is something that we want, something that we shape our lives around. Interesting to say, what is that? For some of us, it might be like our rugby team, fitness. I'm dedicated to fitness. I'm making time for it. It's a priority in my day. It's something that I think about a lot. You could be dedicated to your work. And if you're running a small business, then you do a lot of, I guess we could say after hours, but it's not really after hours. Like it's just a lot of hours. So you can be dedicated in that way. Or sometimes you can be dedicated to a project. If you're working for an employer, you may have a deadline coming up. When you used to do print management, I'm sure you put in a few extra hours because you wanted to get a project across the line.
And I think too, you can be dedicated to family. I'm dedicated to you guys. I want to do what's best for you and the girls especially, and leading and guiding them and stuff. And so, my world kind of revolves around that.
Yeah, and I think it's worth asking that whatever it is that you feel you are dedicated to right now, it may even be your own comfort. I don't know. I know I've got days when I'm pretty dedicated to my own comfort too. But then the question that I think is worth asking is what you're dedicated to actually giving you life. I can be dedicated to my work, and that can help me accumulate possessions. It can help me provide for my family. And they're good things. Is it giving life to the very essence of who I am, to the core of who I am? The thing that I'm putting my time into, the thing that I'm allowing to occupy my thoughts, the thing that I'm putting my sweat into, is that something that is life-giving? Even in this moment, the project that I'm focusing on or the relationship that I'm heavily investing in, is it actually life-giving? And as we look at the story here of our good friend, Mr. Dedication, Enoch, there's a phrase, and you picked up, you said it was mentioned like 3 times or something this morning when we were discussing. And what's that phrase?
That he walked with God.
Yes. So here it talks about close fellowship, but most of the Bibles or the scriptures that you'll read will talk about walking with God. And I might add a few other extra words in, but this idea of walking. Now, you're a bit of a walker. Boom, boom. But what do you enjoy about walking?
Just the opportunity, because walking, I have been a fast walker a lot, but mostly these days, especially when I'm walking with the girls, but even on my own, walking is that kind of pace where you can have a conversation. So I like that, whether it's with the person that I'm walking with, or, I do a lot of walking and praying, so I might talk to God, but it gives you space and time, I think, to notice what's going on around you as well, maybe to process things. I do a lot of processing and thinking when I walk as well, so I think that's what I like. I think if I'm zooming through life or always in a car or something like that, even just the beauty around me, I think we can miss. I like looking for small things, whether it's a bee buzzing here or a tiny flower or something. So there's the beauty as well that I like in when I walk as well.
I can relate to what you said about conversations. I think and express myself better when I'm moving. And if you're in a role where you're not moving, where you're quite static, that can be hard. And maybe you've never even discovered that about yourself. I think too, the idea of just practically getting somewhere, like it's a way, anyone can do it.
Sure.
Sorry, most people can do it. We can move somewhere.
Well, we've had a lot of time where we didn't have a vehicle. to use, and so we would walk, the girls and I, a lot of places. It was great, but yes, it was a way that we could get somewhere and do the things we wanted to do.
Yeah, and I think when we walk, this is not a solo event here. We're talking about walking. That this character actually walked with someone beyond the physical. That he walked with God, and I think when we walk, it can mean a lot of different things. In our part of the world where we live, you can see a little family group, and often there's the father figure up ahead, and then the wife is at the back with the children or the stroller, and the father seems pretty intent on getting somewhere, kind of doesn't really engage with anyone except to turn around and go, hurry up. And the mum's there, and even though they're moving along the same path in the same direction, there's not really any sense of being with. No. For us, like, we walk a little bit as a family. We just did a walk recently, and often there'll be, can I hold your hand on this walk? Can I walk with you? But we're kind of strung out across about 5-10 meters. But even as we're strung out, like, I definitely feel I'm walking with the person I'm holding the hand with. It's you or one of our kids. But then there's often a bit of interaction, and so people will come from the front of our little column and come back, and there is this real sense that we are moving together. And it's not defined by a physical distance, but it's defined by, I think, an awareness and a feeling of being connected to those on the journey with you. And as we read this, that Enoch walked with God, there's a sense of movement, and there's a sense of the nearness of God and the nearness of this person to God. And as we walk, the question is, well, where are we going? If you've been around church circles for quite a while, there's an old phrase, they talk about your walk with God. And I think that's become actually quite inaccurate, because when people use that, they're often talking about habits. And are you ticking off these checklists of habits, which, and let's be honest, some of those habits are quite helpful, but they're not actually moving us in a direction. And as we look at our lives, what direction are we moving? Are we moving forward? Are we moving out? Is there a sense of growth? Or is there a sense of stagnation? Is there a sense of movement? Or is there a sense of retraction and even retreat? And it's not, I don't think that this walk was frantic.
No.
You can walk slowly, literally one step at a time, but we move, And I think, you and I, we walk very differently, but you will stop and look at the birds and take photos, and
Or at night we go for a walk. I'll be standing at the stars.
You stand.
Where's she gone?
Yeah. But you're still moving.
Yeah.
And so there's this idea that as we are moving through our lives, are we actually moving with God somewhere? Is something actually shifting in us, or have we just taken the same step and then taken a step back? Are we living the same year's experience 20 times, or have we had 20 years experience, And there's, I think, a challenge here, because it's this walking with, this experience of the nearness of God that marks our lives. And when we kind of get to the end of this, we see that God takes this person. And that's actually a phrase that can be used in some of the ancient marriage procedures, where the groom would literally take the bride to be with him, to live in that place. And there's this kind of, the end of our life is this deep connection with a transcendent God who somehow is very near to us here. And so I just want to draw what we've talked about to a bit of a close here. There's another scripture that talks about Enoch, and I'm going to flip over here, and it's a letter by an unknown author, and it just says this. In the book of Hebrews, it says, It was by faith, and we could use the word here trust, we could use the hope, that Enoch was taken up to heaven without dying. He disappeared because God took him. For before he was taken up, he was known as a person who pleased God. And it is impossible, it says here, to please God without faith. Anyone who wants to come to God must believe that God exists and that he rewards those who sincerely seek him. And I think as we're exploring this journey of faith, that what we want to say is that there is a reward, that the nearness of God is accessible to you right now.
Yep.
And that's maybe as you're watching this. For me this week, I was having to jackhammer through some concrete on the side of mine. And I was literally asking the question, Jesus, where are you right now? Like, where are you? And the skies opened and there was a thunderbolt. No, that didn't happen. But as I'm standing there going about my work, I experienced the nearness of God. Where I was starting to despair, I experienced a fresh hope. Where my energy was starting to ebb, I experienced fresh energy. There is a reward that God wants to show you how near he is to your life, how involved he wants to be. And we can move through our lives dedicated to the nearness of God and experience that. And the exciting thing for me is that when that happens in our lives, that then other people experience the nearness of God simply because we are dedicated, we are tuned into that, and our lives shift. And it's those moments where people experience the love and the power of Jesus in their lives. And so we want to invite you to take a step. We've talked a lot about walking, and for some of you this may be the beginning of a journey. For others this may be just a single step in a series of many steps. But just to say right now, Jesus, I want to dedicate myself to you. I want to move through this life dedicated to you and with you, aware of your nearness. And I will follow you on the adventure of faith. And if that's a decision that you're ready to make right now, we're going to invite you to pray just a simple prayer that says, Jesus, I give you my life. Give me your life. And that single step of faith can change the direction of your life. It can change the state that you are in right now, because Jesus is near and you can experience his love and power. So if that's a decision you're ready to make, then join us as we pray. Jesus, I give you my life. Give me your life. Jesus, I give you my life. Give me your life. And if you prayed that prayer, you've just begun another adventure of faith. Perhaps the first, perhaps another one in a long line. And if you prayed, we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a note in the comments or get in contact with us, DM us on our social media channels. We'd love to pray with you and support you in whatever the next step is. If you're passing through Southwest Sydney, flick us a message. We love to connect with you around this table for a cup of coffee and a good chat with a few of our other friends who join us. Thanks for tuning in.